of many stumbling blocks to President Obama's plans for the normalization of relations with Cuba may be the fact that dozens of American fugitives are staying in that country. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen with one man's effort to get one of them back.
January 24th, 1975, the FALN placed a bomb at Francis Tavern at about 1:30 in the afternoon. The place, and still is, where Wall Street types went to have lunch. My dad, Frank Connor, was a 33-year-old banker. He was there with clients, and the bomb went off. I want justice, and I want justice for my dad.
Since the late 90s, financial advisor Joe Connor has campaigned tirelessly to get Cuba to extradite this man, Guillermo Morales, once the chief bomb maker for FALN, the militant Puerto Rican group that terrorized New York in the 1970s. Connor believes that Morales made, maybe even planted, the bomb that killed Frank Connor 40 Januaries ago, just days after Joe celebrated his 9th birthday. His hands blown off years later by an errant bomb, Morales somehow escaped from Bellevue Hospital in 1979, fled to Mexico, and spent 5 years incarcerated there, after which, in 1988, Mexican authorities inexplicably allowed him safe passage to Cuba.
He was the face of evil to me as a child. Clearly, they all need to come back, and any normalization of relations with Cuba need to be predicated on their return.
All of them refers to the 70 fugitives from American justice believed to be living in Cuba. Individuals wanted on charges ranging from Medicaid fraud to terrorism and even murder. The most infamous is Joanne Chesimard, a petty criminal turned Black Power radical who was captured in May 1973 after she and a comrade exchanged deadly gunfire with state troopers along the New Jersey Turnpike. A set of lengthy trials climaxed in 1977 when Chesimard, by then calling herself Assata Shakur, was convicted in the killing of state trooper Werner Foster and the wounding of another, and sentenced to life in prison. By 1979, however, Chesimard was free once again when 3 armed accomplices broke her out of this state prison. Since the mid-'80s, she has lived more or less openly in Havana, even as she became the first woman on the FBI's most wanted list for terrorists.
It flies in the face of the great memory of the trooper that she killed, and that trooper's family, that she's allowed to roam.
Assistant Secretary of State Roberta Jacobson, the U.S. official leading the effort to restore diplomatic ties with Cuba, told lawmakers this month she raises Chesimard's case and the other fugitives every time she engages the Castro regime.
We have not gotten a positive response on Joanne Chesimard.
What did they say?
They have said that they are not interested in discussing her return.
A Democratic senator fiercely critical of President Obama's decision to renew ties with Cuba suggested to Jacobson last week that Chesimard's continued refuge in Havana should prove decisive in Secretary of State Kerry's 6-month review due in June of whether Cuba should remain on the department's list of state sponsors of terrorism.
Isn't it true that the State Department considers a foreign government providing sanctuary to a terrorist that has committed a terrorist in another country to be support for international terrorism?
Certainly in the past we have used that sanctuary, as that has been clearly noted in our reports.
Raised in Englewood, Jacobson calls herself a child of New Jersey and says she grew up with the Chesimard case. But as U.S. talks with Cuba continue, the Obama administration is not making the return of the fugitives a condition for the reopening of our embassy in Havana. Bret?
James, thank you.